In the previous episode, we've completed the successful path of the post creation. What's missing is the error cases and the loading indicator. In this episode, we are gonna complete the post composer entirely. My name is Jove, and this is test-driven development screencast. Let's get into it and see how we are gonna do that. So as I've written here, the first thing that we want to address as a leftover from the previous episode is the DateTime format in the timeline, which has some imposes a logical duplication. We're gonna take a look at it, and then we can complete the post composer with the error cases, and here also I'll add the loading. So these two are the focus for this episode. So let's get started. Actually, if I just go to my timeline screen, here is a function that we wrote just to make the test succeed. So basically this is a function, this private here in this screen, which converts a long, which is a timestamp, into human readable DateTime format. But the thing is that every time we are rendering a new item in the timeline, we are calling this function, which internally creates this simple date form, a new instance of it. So I see it as a logical duplication, like recreating this over and over. So I was thinking, how actually can I solve this? But again, this is also a representation. This is a UI sort of code. It relates to the UI. So I was thinking, how actually can I improve this? So I came to a decision to just extract this into an extensions. It's basically a utility, so I can extract it into a file that's gonna be, let's say, with extensions, because at this moment I don't have much evidence. I do want to move it from here, but I don't know whether I'll need a collaborator for it or not. For now, I think that's just fine. If I have more evidence later, I'll just do something else, but for now I'm just gonna extract this somewhere else. So first of all, in order to be able to move, because this is private, I have to remove the private modifier, and now I can just do a move refactoring. So I want to move it into my UI package, and here I have composables, theme, and then I'll just create another package and I'll name it extensions. And I'll name the file DateTime, and I'll leave in the same source root, of course. And now if I open the DateTime, indeed I have an extension function. So what I want to do here is to extract this. I'll just move it outside of the function. I'll make it private here, and of course I'll just rename it with capital case letters. So I'm just gonna have this function that will be formatting for me. And from the timeline, of course, I'm calling that one. I can close now the timeline. And another thing that I've changed after I've submitted the code from the previous episode, as you may notice, is this thing here. So basically in the previous episode, I was using a local date time to actually create the timestamp with time zone offset for the controllable clock. And actually that was a mistake. So the mistake was that I was using a time zone offset from my time zone, but when I submitted the code, actually the CI where the tests are running is not by the same offset as my time zone. So that's why local date time was actually a mistake. So that was a learning. And for now I can just use the calendar instance, and that actually makes sense. So let's see where we are. So first of all, I extracted this one. Let's, before I do anything else, rerun these tests and make sure that I am not breaking anything with with the fact that I have changed the, I've moved the function for the DateTime formatting. So I'm just gonna run the create new post screen tests. As you can see, they work fine. So let's now submit, sort of checking this this thing that I've removed from here, the function from the timeline screen, and I have this extension now. So I'll say extracted an extension function into a separate file. Extension function for DateTime formatting into separate file. And next, as I said here, I've changed the implementation of this. Like I'm using calendar, but now this like is no longer with time zone offset or something. We can just simplify this name by saying timestamp, and basically that's gonna be just timestamp of some date time that we are gonna have. And let's also check that one in. We can say improved naming. Nice. So now let's continue here. We are gonna write a new test where we are gonna say we want to we want to make sure that we are showing an error message when there is, like, let's say a backend error. So we have to cover those two errors, the backend and when there is no internet, when we are offline, and also we want to make sure that we are showing the loading. So let's start with the errors first. So shows backend error. And now what's gonna happen is that we are gonna launch a post composer for, let's say, Dan at friends.com. We are gonna pass the create new post rule. We are gonna type something like some post. We'll submit. And then we have to verify that a backend error is displayed. Of course, we have to create a member function into the robot for that. I'll split them in half so we can see what's happening. And here I want to make sure that that the rule on node with text error message assert is displayed, and my error message is gonna be a rule activity get string creating post error. Of course, now this string does not exist, so I have to create new one. Cannot create a new post. Cannot create a new post. Yeah, I was thinking maybe, well, yeah, let's leave it. And now here, in order to see this, I have to change my post catalog. Instead of using by default the in-memory post catalog, I have to replace the post catalog with an offline post catalog. Luckily, I have this test double already for the previous tests. We, as we remember, we extracted this in some of the previous episodes and made it reusable, so now I can reuse it. which is great. And of course now I can run the tests and let's see what's happening. I expect this test to fail because of course there won't be a node with the given text being shown on the screen, because we are not handling that state in the screen itself. So the first two tests should pass as they used to do. And now the shows backend error is of course, as I said, expected node, but not found any. That's nice. So what we have to do is, let's close the emulator so we can see this in parallel. We go back to our screen, and here in the when, what we're gonna do is we can add here a is create post state backend error. What we're gonna do is we'll say screen state show message r string creating post error. Now this function does not exist yet in our screen state class, so let's create it. So now the input argument is gonna be a string resource. So that's what we are gonna be expecting here and accepting. So that's gonna be the message. And of course the string resources are integers. Now here we would say if the current message is different than the message, then we will update the current message with the message. Now what's the current message? Let's create a property for it. I think I'm gonna be reading it directly so I can remove the private modifier. And here we could say by mutable state of 0 by default, because they are ints. So next here, this column has padding because that's how the screen looks like, but the error message should be actually from the edge to the edge, that red ribbon that we already are familiar with. And in order to do that, I can just wrap this column into a box. Why box? Because I think this thing should show on top of the whatever is on the screen, and also later for the loading is on the actual very top. So that's why. So now below the column here we can show an info message. This is a composable we already have before we have created, and it knows how to deal with, let's say now by default up here we say that our current message is gonna be 0. So this thing already knows how to deal with that. When it's 0, not to show anything. So what we do here is screen state current message. So we are gonna be showing that one. Now let's run the tests and see if they're gonna work. It doesn't work. Let's see why. Is it at the right position? I think we have a box, we have this thingy, and then info message with the current message. And here when we have a backend error, screen state show message. I'm not sure why this is saying it can be private. Then if this is private, yeah, so this shouldn't be private. But maybe I have a problem in the test. Oh, offline. It should be instead of offline. So this is the mistake. A unavailable post catalog. And let's see now, because there is a difference between the unavailable and the offline. And of course now we can see the exact error message that we are expecting. So let's see what happened. Actually, we have added additional function in the robot, another test for checking the backend error being displayed, and of course handling that new state and the actual string. So let's check this in. Can handle, can show proper message when a post cannot be created. Nice. So let's continue. Let's write another test. Shows offline error. And now launch the post composer for, let's say, Mia at friends.com. Let's close the emulator so it's gonna be more visible what's happening here. Create new post rule. We're gonna type post. Doesn't really matter, and submit. And we should verify that an offline error is displayed. And of course we have to create a member function for it. We can do the same rule on node with text offline message. Assert is displayed, and the offline message is gonna be the rule activity get string offline error. That's something that we already have in the strings. And of course, for that to happen, part of the given should be we have to replace our post catalog with now. We have to use the offline post catalog, so not to make the same mistake. Of course, now if we run the tests, this test would fail because the node won't be there. Let's make sure that we are not missing anything. Shows offline error. This one also failed because probably could be some like it might be flakiness because he didn't wait, but let's see. This is the actual failure. Exactly one node, but couldn't find any that satisfies you seem to be offline. Nice. Let's close the emulator again and go back to our screen. So now here we can say is create post state offline. In that case, the screen state show message r string offline error. That should make it pass. Let's see. Yes, so shows backend error, shows offline error. All of the tests are working well. Now let's check this in again. So what happened is just additional robot function, additional test, and create new post screen. That's what we wanted. So the commit message can show proper message when the device, when creating a post while offline. Nice. And the final thing, let's close the emulator. The final thing I wanna do is, let's maybe do that above these errors. Here a test shows blocking loading. So I want to make sure that when I hit the button to submit a post, a loading spinner is gonna be present until the operation is done. Only then we are gonna close the screen. So again, launch the post composer for bob at friends.com. Then here I'll just pass the create new post rule. Type post and submit. And I have to verify that the blocking loading is shown. Or maybe better is displayed, because I think, yeah, we're using the is displayed. Well, here is shown, so I'll just rename those two to match the is shown. So let's create member function. So I'll move it here. Rule on node with tag loading. Check. Well, I'm now that is the espresso thing. So check matches is displayed. Here I can just say assert is displayed. So loading is a rule activity get string r string loading, of course. And now yeah, I'll rename these two is displayed to is shown, these two, a little bit later. So they're gonna match this one is shown and this one is shown. So the entire robot's gonna be the same. But let's first focus on this one. Let's run the tests and see. Well, first I think what I'm missing, it doesn't make sense to run the tests. Because here I have to, because it's part of the given, I have to replace the post catalog with delaying post catalog. Let's create this class now. As actually I have this class, but it's in the timeline screen test. So let's first go ahead and move this into the together with the other test doubles so that I can reuse it. So move this, move nested class to upper level. Okay, so where do I want to move it? Is to into was it infrastructure or friends? Let me see. What was the package? Because I don't remember. So it's controllable clock, offline post catalog, and available post catalog. So here I should move it into domain post So this one should go into delaying post catalog into the domain post, but in the shared tests, and exactly we can see it here. Let's close now this panel, and now here what we can do is we also have to delay the adding of the post. So what we can do here is we can just add a little artificial delay of 2 seconds, just because here we have also 2 seconds, and we can return, and here is just a post and it's really irrelevant. So some post ID, the user ID that is being sent, the post text, and the date can be really, like, doesn't really matter, 0 for example. Because the thing is that the purpose of this delaying post catalog is to actually have this artificial delay. It doesn't matter what's going to be the return here and here. That's why we have here empty list, here we have whatever, just any post. That doesn't really matter. The delay is the important thing, the significant thing here. So what happened here is I've moved the thing, so from this test, and I can reuse it now. So here I have the delaying post catalog, so I can already run the tests and watch it fail and see if it's gonna fail for the right reason. And of course, not to forget to actually check in the fact that we have moved the test double. So that's also important part. So here, as we can see, we have shows blocking loading. At this moment, it doesn't work. It says like that it couldn't find it on the screen. Let's close this emulator first, and then make sure that we are gonna check in only first the thing that we are moving. So here we have the delaying post catalog that was inside the timeline screen test. So let's check this in. So extracted a reusable test double from the timeline screen test. Delaying post catalog test double, because I want to make it clear in the commit message what's actually being extracted. And then here we have the failing test. Now let's make it pass. And here we can say when is create post state loading, we can say the screen state show loading. Now, of course, this does not exist yet. We have to create a member function. And here we can say is loading is true. When we show a message, we have to hide the loading before we actually show the message. And here we can say var is loading by mutable state of false by default, so it's not gonna be showing anything. So essentially, when we call, like when we get any error, basically when we submit something, we are showing the loading spinner. When we get back the success, we are closing the screen, so that's fine. When we are not closing the screen, we are showing the error message, but because we are showing an error message, if there was loading before, we have to make sure that it's gonna be hidden. So that's why this is loading here. And then we are gonna, as I said before, it has to be on top of everything. So here we are again going to use loading, like the blocking loading, and here is showing is gonna be the screen state is loading. Now let's take a look. Running the tests, this should make the test work. And as we can see, it already passed. And that's great. And now let's first check in this. So what happened is, yeah, the additional test, the additional function in the robot, and the changes in the screen. So can show a blocking loading while the post creating is ongoing. Nice. Now let's close the emulator. So what happened? For some reason this started showing. Well, okay, doesn't matter. First thing, I said that we are gonna rename this here into is shown. And this here into also is shown. That shouldn't break anything. And then we check that in, and then we can see what we can improve in the screen code. If there is something, like we can extract the state, definitely. So here we go, it works. Let's check this in. Renamed the functions to align with the rest in the class. Nice. Let's again close the emulator and see here. So the screen looks pretty fine to me. So it's like nice little screen, doesn't have much ongoing here. We have the post composer, and yeah, so here what we can do, we can split this a little bit. One big thing that I want to say is that now the application as it is so far, it is not surviving the screen, the configuration changes. Basically, if there is like screen rotation ongoing or some other thing like language change, font size, whatever, the configuration changes, it is not surviving. I think that's something that we can deal with a little bit later. Not a little bit, actually, a little bit more later, because now I think it's just outside of the scope of what we are doing here. But it's something that is really trivial, at least with Compose and with the tools that we are having in our hand. Now it's sort of a trivial thing to fix. I didn't start going that way, so I think I'll just postpone it a little bit more. So the last thing that I want to do is I want to extract this class now, and I want to put it into post composer state, and in the same root. So what we have now is we have the create new post screen, and that's about it. And the state is gonna live into its own file. Let's run the tests to make sure nothing is broken, then we can submit. Woo, already. Oh yeah, the imports. So I think we have to do the imports. The studio is not able to recognize and do the imports as it is now by itself. It's been buggy since, I don't know, a few versions back. So let's then also make sure that the imports in our screen class are fine. So let's then see. So here it is extracted. And here, as we can see, the imports are also removed, the ones that were supposed to be moved. So yeah, what happened is we have extracted the screen state class into a standalone file. Nice. Let's close the emulator once again. And I think this is pretty much it for this one. Let me see if we are missing something in this file. So basically we have covered the loading in the error cases. We have addressed this date format thingy. So what's next is we can fix, well, we can work on remembering the signed up user. This is something that we wanted to do before as well. So that's gonna be something that we can do in the next episode, and maybe start working on the friends, depending on how much this is gonna take. It shouldn't take much, but maybe I'll be just taking my time to explain some things. Maybe we can also do a little retrospect on what we've done, but basically one half of the app is almost done. What's following is that we are gonna first create a friends section where we can follow friends, unfollow friends, and depending on who we are following, we are gonna be showing the posts in the timeline and so on. And finally, when that's done, the application is gonna work everything in memory for us. So the application will be fully functional and testable in memory without any dependency from outside world. And of course, then we can just create the contracts. We can write an implementations that will be talking to a backend, and of course do the backend as well. So that's my plan. We'll see how that's gonna go. But for this episode, I think we are done. I hope it was joyful. So thank you so much for the time and attention. I'm gonna catch you in the next episode. Cheers.